DDG episode 125. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? I can't remember. Last week we didn't record at our normal time. Mm-hmm. This is our normal time. So
what's our normal time? I don't even know what our normal time is anymore.
Tuesday early evening seems to be like our live time, typically until the last couple weeks. Feels weird, but I have more energy than usual.
Yeah,
so.
I actually feel pretty good today. It's one of my first days off in about 8 or 9 days. You know, little tidbits of work here or there, and then also just figuring out if like how to be a store manager now. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I did because I didn't realize was my responsibility, and it's messing with me a little bit mentally.
So you're not just sitting in the office doing nothing?
No, okay. Not at all.
Because I thought that's how store managers function.
Maybe like soon, eventually, I might be able to do that. But right now, I feel like there's 100 things that I should be doing.
Yeah, I just assume all managers just chain smoke and spend 95% of their shift in the back room staring at a wall.
Yeah, well, I definitely don't chain smoke. You know that. So
yeah. Not yet. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So obviously we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that streams on Twitch Tuesday nights or whenever we go live, typically Tuesday nights like we just talked about. But we also go live on podcast services on Thursday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern time. We have Discord, Facebook, Twitter, all that fun stuff. It's all linked in the show notes, as well as a Teesprings account and a Patreon page that you can check out. If you want some t-shirts or some hoodies, please check out the Teesprings. And if you want to support us on Patreon, you can do so. All the links are in the show notes. So we do have a little bit of news to talk about today, finally. I don't think that Michael and I played a lot, but we'll jump into some of the news really quick. So.
Yeah, so news is a little bit all over the place, but we're right in that time period where we usually would be building up to all the summer announcements, so it gets kind of quiet right around now. And as Dave and me went through like 2 weeks ago, there's not a ton of games coming out over the next 7 months, so news is going to be a little all over the place, though there are some things to talk about. The first one is Epic Games has officially released Unreal Engine 5 along with 2 sample projects. So it was in early access last summer, I think middle of May, late May, and that was just internal for the most part, and we haven't heard too much about what's going to happen with the Unreal Engine 5 until last week when CD Projekt Red said they are going to use that for The Witcher, and now we are finding out that Crystal Dynamics will be using it for the next Tomb Raider. So this is just Unreal Epic Games is kind of prepping everyone to let them know here are the tools, here's our marketplace that we're going to build out, go for it. And they also released 2 like sample projects, Lyra Starter Game, which is like a base thing people can build games on, but it's mostly just like a learning resource. And then there's City Sample, which is just basically a behind the scenes look at the building of that Matrix tech demo from a little while ago. Yeah, Dave, I believe just a couple weeks ago you were asking, like, when are we going to see, like, an Unreal Engine game or using a new Unreal Engine? And looks like it's probably not too far away now that it's officially released for everyone to access.
Yeah, I know you have a bullet point in here essentially saying the only 2 announced projects using Unreal Engine 5 are CD Projekt Red's new game, like you just mentioned, and Crystal Dynamics' new Tomb Raider game. But yeah, it looks like... So Ryan McCaffrey today on Twitter, Ryan McCaffrey does really great work for IGN. Unreal Engine 5 official release means that we are now one step closer to the following Xbox exclusives: Hellblade 2, Gears of War 6, Avowed, Outer Worlds 2, Everwild, State of Decay 3, in Exiles 2. I'm sorry, I'm INXILE.
That's a studio, yeah.
There are 2 new RPGs, Double Fine's next game, and then Perfect Dark as well. So essentially all of Microsoft studios are using Unreal Engine 5 or have been using Unreal Engine 5 in their beta form, and now that it's being finalized, they can do the rest of the tweaking and the polishing. And to your point, like you mentioned last week, of if there are any issues now, whoever had been working on launching Unreal Engine 5 for Epic now can maybe help troubleshoot some of these Microsoft games because they built the engine and now they're done building. So
yeah, now they're support team, and they can build out the support team. Because believe most of, I mean, you just went through the list. It seems like every studio does use Unreal Engine in some form, so it makes sense that any future projects will just move over to Unreal Engine 5.
Right.
Just because Epic has done a really good job of transitioning each engine to where it's not that difficult to put previously used
I
work
would say
in
unless
there.
the game is like 80 or 90% done on Unreal 4, like it would move to 5. If it's less than 70% complete, I would assume it would just move to 5. If it's cost effective and advantageous for the developer, because Epic makes it the ease of use and ease of entry, at least on the outside, seems to be pretty easy, seamless.
And then it looks like they're really going to hopefully build out the Unreal Marketplace, which is something that they kind of joined that party a little later. Like Unity was known for having like the marketplace for assets, and Unreal did eventually do that for 4, but it seems like that's going to be very important for them moving forward.
I saw some discussion about like phone scanning.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that like they're going to be doing that's going to be pretty interesting. And now that it's just available, like we're not too far away from hearing about indie devs that are going to be using this out. Of course we're going to hear about the big studios that are working on stuff, but we're very soon from hearing people announcing their next project on this engine.
I think that like the phone scanning thing sounds interesting from an indie dev standpoint. If they're making a game and they want to like have, I don't even know, like a scene or an area, like a cutscene, an area like on a street, now it seems like they might just be able to scan a street, which sounds really intriguing in terms of ease of entry, like, or just like something as simple as, or I don't think it's simple, but scanning a stop sign or a traffic light to help get that asset into the game.
Get it into the game, or just to mess around with stuff. I mean, that's usually where innovation comes from, is just people just using these tools and tweaking stuff they know. Which is why Unreal wanted to make a big deal about this. They did a State of Unreal 2022 today, just so they can get people hyped for this and get all those wheels in motion. We've always heard like game development though of like, to make the protagonist walk down a street, like we had to develop the entire street, like every block of cement, every curve, like all that stuff, and hopefully this helps make that easier in this engine. And we've seen tons of developers obviously move to any Unreal format over our lifetime in the games. Like I still think Unreal 3 was early on when you and I started covering games. So that 360 era was still using that, and then Unreal Engine 4 was towards the end of the 360 PS3 era, and then it was the engine to use. Sure. At least the named engine. There's a few in-house engines that don't really have like public names, but we'll hear more about this engine. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing like some smaller games start getting announced on this engine, and we'll see where this can go. But from this announcement, we did find out that Crystal Dynamics is working on a new Tomb Raider game. So it will be using Unreal Engine 5, and the studio is currently working on the Perfect Dark game with the Initiative over at Xbox. But it looks like the studio is splitting their time between that and now this new Tomb Raider game. They are hiring up because it seems like they're taking on a lot more responsibility with the Perfect Dark game based on how that studio is going over there at Xbox. So they're posted like 50 job vacancies today along with the announcement. And then they also revealed they got the Days Gone director, Jeff Ross, to join them as a design director. So he's over there now. And they did emphasize, though, that the next iteration of Tomb Raider is years away. I mean, they just announced what engine they're using now and have over 50 vacancies.
So now they've hired a guy that did underperforming game with Days Gone for a studio that makes games out of the West that always underperforms. So this is like a marriage made in heaven.
Yeah, Square Enix is going to have a field day with this.
I'm kidding. I don't think Days Gone underperformed. I'm just like, the perception was it underperformed, and then obviously Crystal Dynamics, anytime they or Square Enix, anytime they seem to speak about Crystal Dynamics, it's always like they just didn't hit the mark.
It seems like if anyone at Crystal Dynamics breathes funny, Square Enix has like the interview waiting to go to let you know how they didn't do it right.
So I have a question based on these couple bullet points. So what do you think this means for the future of Avengers?
I think they're. Dave, I hate to tell you, I think it's done.
Well, I'm just more
yeah.
like this. Maybe this contract's expiring, like we talked about. Like maybe they hit the criteria of the contract.
I think they did, because with the last big expansion, they kind of were really quiet about talking about the future, other than saying like, yeah, we'll still support it, as in if something breaks down the line, we'll fix it. But I'm guessing. I'm even guessing Square Enix's Marvel contract, because Guardians underperformed, would probably be something Square is just looking to move away from. So yeah, that did pop in my head too when I was like looking at the story. I'm just like, oh, I wonder if that means Avengers is officially dead, because you have them working on Perfect Dark, and at this point, based on all the news reports from the Initiative, that is no longer an Initiative Perfect Dark game. That is a Crystal Dynamics Perfect Dark game, because that studio is just kind of disintegrated over time. So between them being the head studio for Perfect Dark and now this Tomb Raider game that is starting from scratch, Avengers is over at this point, which I don't think anyone's sad about that, to be honest. Like, any sadness there was about the Avengers happened day one. When that game came out, or during the beta period, to be honest, because I think that's when we were kind of just done with everything with the Avengers. So I'm excited for a new Tomb Raider. Like, I haven't spent a ton of time, like I didn't play the last one, but like just the fact that Crystal Dynamics has another project gives me hope that they're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I haven't played any of them long periods of time. Like I should. I feel like they'd be in my wheelhouse of like Uncharted copying Tomb Raider copying Uncharted. But I don't know. I don't really have a precise reason why I haven't done them. I should look into how long they take to play and try to knock some of them out. So
they're not crazy long. They're about Uncharted size, because that's what they were going for. But yeah, no, Crystal Dynamics is a super talented studio, but because they're attached to Square Enix, like they're that studio that I think we've talked about in the past. Like, we just kind of want Microsoft to purchase them, or maybe a PlayStation to purchase them, just to get them away from Square, because they're a really talented studio, but it has to hurt every time they release something. Square is ready to throw them under the bus. That is that aspect of the Unreal Engine news. And then this kind of happened the day we recorded last week, but we just didn't have time because of the PlayStation Plus news. E3 2022.
And nobody cares. So.
Yeah. E3 2022 is officially canceled. In person was already canceled. Showcase that they never really announced, but people just assumed they were going to do, because they never closed the door on there being a digital presentation until last week. In the most E3 ESA reveal, this was found out because I think it was a PR person that just tweeted out like, oh shit, I just got an email saying E3 has been canceled. So I guess E3 was canceled. And then a couple hours later, ESA came out and was like, yep, E3 is not happening this year. And Jeff Keighley put out like a winky face emoji as his tweet to the news, and then very quickly an announcement ready saying Summer Game Fest happening in June, and he can't wait to bring new games to people in June.
Do you think in a post-pandemic, like a clean post-pandemic world, whenever that is, that Summer Game Fest kind of becomes like E3? Like, do you, like, in 2 years, like, do you see us going to somewhere, like whether it's LA, San Diego, California, or San Francisco, Austin, Texas, I don't know, and and going to like a convention center ran by Keighley's company?
Yeah, I think that's what Keighley's end game really is. Like, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if this year we're going to hear, because Keighley used to run the Judges Week for E3.
Right.
That was a separate thing from E3 that he would run for them.
And he got full participation in that.
Yeah, every outlet, it was like hundreds, like 100 outlets that were there a week before E3. So like between that and then like him doing the Coliseum stuff, I feel like that is where it's leading. I wouldn't be surprised if this year we get a Judges Week for Summer Game Fest, and then because he's California based, he just get everyone
Yeah, I mean,
that
all
has
he
an
has to
outlet
do is
over there.
essentially all he really has to do for the major outlets is go to San Francisco, or bring or I don't even know what it would take. But the couple times that I've been to San Francisco, like you and I have seen it, there's 4 or 5 smaller venues that he could rent out, and each developer or these major developers that wanted to participate in Judges Week could, have something in almost in a cubicle style where you could rotate people in and out over 3 days.
Oh, I mean, Judges Week in the past, I've watched videos from those. It's usually just like in a banquet hall in a hotel.
Yeah.
Like it's legit broken down into that where they just rent out a bunch of rooms in a hotel or rent out the banquet hall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that I could totally see Jeff Keighley doing that maybe this year, just to like prep people for like next year, him just outright running an event. Or there's a chance ESA will just be like, shit, okay, we can't do this without you.
Yeah, and let's pay you a certain amount of money for you to run it under our name or something.
Yeah, which I would be all for, because like Keighley cares about this shit. Like he definitely cares about, making sure there's like an award show that happens every year. He's capable of putting that together, and he built his career pretty much on like E3, and
he could control the dynamic from June to December.
Yeah, and he looks like he's primed to just continue doing that. It's just going to be a matter of if the ESA E3 wants to come with him on this journey, because if they don't, I mean, he still ends Summer Game Fest at Gamescom, with Gamescom Live, so he'll just do it there, and it'll just be more European centric, which I'm fine with. I want to go to an event, but it won't happen this year. So we just have, at this point, if we want like an in-person event, we just have to root for Jeff Keighley, because I totally see, or
independent, or like a company like Ubisoft or something, like doing like one of their big AAA games, or I mean Activision. Well, I mean, I guess Microsoft. I don't know. Like that's the the windows or the major publishers are getting gobbled up.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be like, this would be a perfect opportunity, because remember when PAX was trying to expand, like they did like the 2-3 years in Texas before they were like, this isn't going to work anymore. There's a huge opportunity for I think it's ReedPop that runs that, to just go, oh, people are used to a big in-person event happening in June in California. Okay, cool. We're gonna take that time. We'll rent the convention
Summer
center.
PAX. Like don't even replace PAX West. Just add it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just add it, and it just happens to be more media focused, just so they can take that attention, because everyone just kind of gets used to, like, I'm used to it. Like, video game news happens in June.
Yeah. and I think you could do a larger scale of what we saw. What would we like the mix? When we would go to the mix, that would be like an entire. One year it was like on a rooftop of a building.
Yeah, it was a penthouse.
Yeah, like a penthouse rooftop, and they just had people spread out and on essentially like on nice banquet tables.
And you would go into like the bedrooms, and there would just be more tables and more developers there.
So I mean, I could, cool. I would not be like offended. Like I've been to events where I played a video game, and you've done this too, like where we played a video game on somebody's phone or on their laptop or on a games machine, where they just kind of like, they have a console attached to like their briefcase, and then they open it up, and the monitor's on the lid of the briefcase, and we play it. And then I've also been to a larger AAA event where there's 70-inch TVs and couches. So
yeah, I literally had an appointment where I met someone in a restaurant, and they had a game on their Vita that they were showing me. So you can do this anywhere at this point, and as much as like remote stuff has happened and worked, it still doesn't quite work in terms of like the coverage and getting people excited.
Just the conversation aspect, like when I've gone to like comparing myself playing Immortals and Far Cry 6. Yeah, Far Cry 6. I played both of those early and remote. Not even close. My excitement level was automatically tempered by just the lack of environment. Like,
well, yeah,
and it sucks to say that, but
also just comes down to just not only environment. It's just you tend to get more information when you're in person with someone, as opposed to, how it's been done remote, where it's just like, oh yeah, the PR person's just going to be on the line with a developer, if you even have a developer,
right? Versus the developer walking
person
by you, seeing you play, seeing you do something, and go, "Hey, don't do that. Do it this way." Or, "How did you do that? Show me that again."
Yeah.
Like,
and you can get away from the bullet points, because like anytime you go to like an event, they have their bullet points that they're supposed to hit, but when you're in person, you can get them to deviate a little bit from that and get just a little bit more information, as opposed to just a remote thing that like takes way too long to set up sometimes, where you're like a half hour of just like, okay, is it good? It's good. Okay, let's go. I don't know. I hope we get in-person events.
Yeah.
And I think Jeff Keighley's the one that's going to bring it back, probably next year, which is why I totally think he's going to do a Judges Week. I think that's where we're heading. Like, we'll probably get a Judges Week because it'll just be the easiest thing for him to do, because all the major outlets, or most of them, are at least San Francisco based. So.
Well, and the interesting part is it's him. Like the we've heard, you know, like we started to see it over the last couple of years. The ESA had their thing, EA had their thing, Microsoft had their thing, Nintendo had their thing, you know, and yeah, like Sony was there, but now Keighley can control Judges Week a little bit more, because like, hey, do you want to participate in the Summer Games Fest? Like, okay, you're gonna do that. We're gonna do this and this and this, and I've got 25, you know, outlets that are prepared to see your stuff a week, you know, 10 days before the entire event kicks off, but they're all going to sign ironclad agreements that they're going to see it on June 10th, but they can't talk about it till July 18th.
Yeah. And it's funny though, I don't think people realize like how much power and respect Jeff Keighley has in the industry. I know on Twitter people can like undercut him a little bit and make fun out of like how the game's word is presented, but like this dude has a lot of sway in the industry. So if he decides he wants to do this, he will have the support. I've been to like events, one event in particular I can think of, I won't name the publisher or anything, but like the whole event was supposed to start at like 4, and we didn't start till like 4:10, 4:15 because Keighley was running late. And as soon as Keighley walked in the door, the lights dimmed and then they did the presentation. So it's one of those things where like, if I was 10, 15 minutes late, I probably would have been told, they started, you can't come in. But when Jeff Keighley, who doesn't even have an outlet,
right?
You know, like if you think about it, like when Jeff Keighley goes to a preview event, it's just to get him to tweet. Like that's all you're getting for him.
He doesn't have a YouTube channel. He doesn't have a Twitch. He doesn't have a website. Like,
yeah, you know, like he
signed
has
a big
lot
contract
of
years ago with YouTube TV, when YouTube TV or YouTube Gaming.
Yeah, and then game trailers before that.
Yeah.
But like this was way past that, to where it's just like he has a lot of sway in this industry. So if anyone can get this done, it would probably be like Keighley. And again, it's just going to be a matter of like, will E3 want to go along with the ride? Which is wild to me, because like technically E3 is run by all the major publishers in the industry. So you'd think that they would have an interest in like keeping this going.
That board, man, that doesn't sound like that board. Like they need to just like wipe the board out, the ESA board.
Yeah, at this point, because they don't know what they're doing. They want to do like the whole influencer thing that they were trying to do 2 years ago before the pandemic happened. I don't know. They need to do some broad changes, which is why I think they should just hand the keys over to Keighley. All right. Let's get into some like more serious news. This is just like a rough list of all the shit over the last like 2 weeks.
Why did they get bought? Like, no, it's like,
I don't know, but
like,
that's
why did they get bought? And now that's why they got bought.
And now the question is, will they get bought?
Yeah.
Because this seems to be getting worse and worse. Of course, we're talking about Activision Blizzard. All right, I just have a bunch of bullet points. This isn't even everything that's been in the news for this company. It's fucking rough. But Activision Blizzard recently settled one of their abuse lawsuits with the EEOC. This was an $18 million settlement, which is on the low end of what I believe the EEOC wanted. But that's also why I said this is one of the like lawsuits that are going against Activision. So they have to now pay $18 million to the EEOC, which then will be distributed to employees that like fill out paperwork that said they worked, I believe, from September 2016 to sometime before the lawsuit took place.
Why does this feel like one of those pieces of paper you get in the mail that you like, I had a piece of juicy fruit from November of 1994 to November of 1997.
It's basically exactly like that. When you go to it, they'll have like a website link that looks suspicious.
Yeah.
Like anytime I get an email that's like, hey, there's a class action lawsuit, here's a website that's totally not fake, and then I'm just like, I'm fine, I don't want 50 cents. So again, this is only one of a couple lawsuits, though there is like some caveats. So I believe if you're an employee and you do opt in for a settlement from this $18 million, you no longer can hop into any of the other lawsuits. So that will play an effect in terms of employee compensation from this. Microsoft chimed in and said they would accept any union under the condition that Activision Blizzard recognizes the union before the purchase closes, which is both almost like a dare to Activision and also Microsoft being like, stop asking us these questions. We don't own them yet, so we cannot say anything other than whatever Activision decides we'll go with.
We will accept it and then do everything humanly in our power to change it once we own them.
Exactly.
Whether that means keeping them as a union or offering them enough to say, hey, like, we, like, here's ABC, like, can we please just rip up this union contract and, go ask all of our other companies to see if like this counter to prove our point, or go talk to all of our other studios.
I feel like if this was in person and Phil Spencer was like, yeah, we'll accept this term under the condition that Activision accepts it, he would glare super hard at Bobby Kotick and be like, don't you fucking dare. Because Microsoft very much wants to seem like a friendly company. They actually tend to get voted as like a good company to work with, which is why they don't feel they need a union. Right. So the idea of bringing a union from one of their acquisitions in is kind of scary to them, because then their apparent happy employees will be like, well, we want that too. And then it'll cause a domino effect that I don't think Microsoft is willing to bite on, which is why it's up to Activision at this point. And Activision has been doing everything they can to stop a union from happening. And they've obviously been doing horrible things to stop that, as in hiring union busting companies and lawyers and all sorts of ugly things to prevent that. But I think that's like the big one. I mean, we'll talk about it again in another bullet point, but like this is the one that might actually kill the deal from happening. But the FTC did announce that they are reviewing the acquisition currently, and they have some concerns, which is why they're reviewing it, and they're asking for additional information from Microsoft. So from what I can gather, it's not necessarily, and this will tie into another thing, it's not necessarily that they're worried about like a monopoly. They're more worried about like what some of the senators have brought up. So specifically 4 U.S. senators sent a letter to the FTC stating their concerns that this acquisition will derail the work being done by employees that are demanding accountability from years of abuse by management. So what the senators are saying, what the FTC is reviewing, is currently they're trying to like get some sort of accountability on the management, and this acquisition will undo that, and then they'll just get to golden parachute out consequence free. And that is a concern from that.
Which is valid, but also not Microsoft's problem.
Exactly. And that's where Microsoft is going to have to say is like, we're sorry that's happening, but we're acquiring them. And Microsoft will then be like, we're a good place to work with. They won't have these concerns under us. But it's still like a complicated thing. And Microsoft can't just say like, oh, we're just not going to pay the management because they can't, right. they have to pay everyone out. But Dave, any thoughts specifically when it comes to like that aspect? Because you can kind of see what the senators are talking about. Like,
yeah, I mean,
you can get their perspective.
They want Activision's upper management to be held accountable for what they did, or what they allowed to happen, and what they did. And that's 100% right. That's 100% valid. But like I just mentioned, it's also not Microsoft's problem, because Microsoft's going to be like, I don't need 5 game directors. I have game directors. Like, these guys aren't going to be part of Microsoft Studios, which is what Activision will then become. So I think that unfortunately, like when you purchase a company, like I've lived it in real life. It's still, I don't understand this part of it. Like when I make this statement, I know it's going to sound like funny, but like I financially, I don't understand how it's better to pay somebody to go away. Like from a financial standpoint, like I don't understand it. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you X amount of dollars, and you no longer work for me. Go away. Like from a sports perspective, I get it. Like like I want you off of my team, and if it means that I have to pay out your contract to get you off of my team because you're affecting what's going on, like I can see that. But when you're coming into a new team, which is essentially what Activision is doing, it baffles me that, like, okay, we're going to get rid of you. We're going to give you X amount of months or years of severance as because we have eliminated your job. And then we're gonna, like the corporate world, we're gonna hire somebody to do the exact same thing you're doing that's a better person.
Yeah. No, but it is baffling how like all of that works. It's like the perspective of like, the higher up you are the chain, the less work you end up having to do, but you get compensated.
Like, Kotick will go away. We know this is inevitable. Kotick will go away. Yeah. He'll be paid to go away, and he will not be replaced because they don't need to replace him. Like, Phil Spencer will make those decisions, or Phil Spencer will promote somebody from one of his other studios, or somebody within Activision that maybe he has a relationship with that he trusts and he's comfortable with, will then become the default, president of Activision who reports to Spencer. Like, Kotick reported to the board, and essentially what we found out is that Kotick just did whatever the hell he wanted to do, and the board didn't do anything
because they got paid.
Right. Like, so now this person will have to become accountable for Activision to Spencer, and Spencer will have to be accountable to it sounds like one other person at Microsoft, like from what we've heard. The CEO is like he has a direct line to her. I can't remember her name currently, sorry. But so that part will change, but I don't see, like, we as an example, and this is an example, I'm not saying it's great, we could see somebody go from 343 all of a sudden now that's in charge of Activision's entire umbrella, as an example. So
yeah, and that's why when they made the announcement, they even put that whole chart out, and you notice that Kotick was not in that chart, but there were Activision Blizzard people in that chart. Yeah. But Kotick wasn't there because
Spencer's been around for years. Like, we all know Spencer's been around for years, and we've talked about it for years. People jump studios and change companies all the time in gaming. So there is somebody that Phil Spencer has done a midnight crunch with to make a game that works for Activision now that Spencer trusts. They're there.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at it from like the Bethesda acquisition, Pete Hines didn't go away.
Right.
He's still in charge of Bethesda because Pete Hines doesn't have any baggage that we know of that would make it an issue to where Phil Spencer is fine just being like, just keep running Bethesda.
So
your shit's exclusive.
So essentially Spencer talks to Hines, and Hines talks to his team. That's the direction it goes. And then if so Hines has to take everything his team tells him and regurgitate it correctly to Spencer, and then Spencer has to like take that information and decide, okay, well, we're going to do this, and then whether Hines likes it or not, he's got to go back to Bethesda and say, this is what we're doing.
Yeah. So. Last aspect of this, which I put for last, is Activision Blizzard will be holding a shareholders vote on April 28th, and the vote requires a majority vote in favor of the deal for the acquisition to go through. So this is important. Most likely it's going to go through because it's basically like, hey, do you guys want $95 a share versus whatever it currently is now? I think it's in like the 70 amount. Right. But there is like a section of the shareholders that are currently suing regarding this, and there is a chance that the vote might be close, but it's going to come down to if that is going to be worth it for the shareholders, because that price is already agreed to. So it's just a matter of
and inevitably, as we get closer to this vote, we will see the stock price decrease. So
like right now it's at $80 a share. The vote in 4 weeks is going to be like, do you approve selling your shares for $95? And Activision is warning, if you guys vote against this, the share price will drop significantly.
Right.
So they're trying to prep them for the consequences of this vote.
And then, like, you don't have it on here, but they're also just. They're doing, I'm going to get it wrong probably, but they're essentially like forcing people back to the office and lifting the vaccine mandate at the same time.
That's the one I forgot. Yeah. And they already reversed it.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they reversed it already. So they were telling everyone you have to come back to the office, which means a ton of talent are going to leave. So that's just how it is right now. And then they said there is no vaccine requirement anymore, but apparently they have reversed it in some aspects. Just the vaccine part, not they're going back to the office. They're forcing people to go back. But that's another aspect. So we'll probably see another mass exodus from Activision, just based on like going back to the office, assuming everyone would be fine with no vaccine mandate, and then reversing it. It's like good that they reversed that aspect, but at that point you probably lost the trust of some employees.
Right. And also what's been deemed publicly as a hostile work environment.
Exactly.
An
like,
office hostile environment.
Yeah.
Of the if I could be wrong, but since we've started talking about this prior to the acquisition, I have not heard of a significant name leaving Activision.
No, because they all were leaving as soon as that news broke out. So I don't even know who's in charge in some aspects of Activision anymore. Activision's a mess. Like, this deal will probably go through, but it's gonna get ugly, and it's probably gonna get dragged out further at this point. Because I think they gave 18-month window for like closing this.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, we started. We talked about this in February, or no, December. Yeah,
December, and I think they said it would be closed. Like, there'd be one more Call of Duty, potentially multi-platform, and then they would potentially reevaluate things.
Well, that's the crazy part, is like what we thought would be around the conversation of the FTC stopping them would be like, okay, what are you doing with these platforms? Like, what are you doing with these games? Like, you know, the concern about getting near monopolizing, you know, obviously. But so far, the conversation's been around, what are you going to do about the people that have been affected by this merger? And Microsoft's like, that is not our problem.
Yeah, it will be our problem in 18 months when you approve this deal.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely, this is the thing, like, as far as we know, Phil Spencer can kind of just do what he wants. Like, he has that sway in Microsoft. But after this acquisition, I'm sure he's having to have meetings where he's just like, this was a really good deal on paper. It will work out for us in the end. But it is probably a headache where they are having to talk to legal way more than they expected.
He's going to his boss and he goes, I promise you these IPs are worth more than what and I don't mean it when I say this, but I promise you these IPs are worth more than what the talent that's there. It's more about the titles than it is the talent.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Especially and most of those developers are talented. Like, I'm not disputing that. People that make World of Warcraft are talented. That make Call of Duty are talented.
You're putting your billionaire hat on. Of, like, in terms of what they see, numbers.
Like, getting these platforms under the Microsoft name is more important than what's going on. So, which sucks. It sucks to say, but
but that's how corporations think. So. Last story. So last week, Greg Miller tweeted that he heard 3 big rumors that, if they're true, will be huge. But he never said that they were going to happen that week. But he did say one of them was going to be the PlayStation Plus revamp. So a lot of people expected all 3 announcements to happen last week. We were kind of hoping all 3 announcements would happen last week, but it didn't. But a lot of people were giving Greg Miller like shit for that. So Greg Miller and Jeff Grubb basically came out and just said like what the other 2 rumors that they heard were. The first one is that PlayStation is in the process of putting together a PSVR 2 event. They wouldn't say if this was going to be like a digital showcase or an actual in-person event, but it could be a combination of both. They do know that PlayStation was showing PSVR 2 at GDC recently, so a presentation does make sense, but no time frame was given. So that was the second rumor on top of the PlayStation Plus revamp. So any thoughts on that, other than, of course, that would be happening eventually.
About time. Like, like, so my concern with PSVR is just VR 1 or 2 is just the lack of anything around it lately. I have one. I haven't really used it. And like, and I didn't even realize this. Like, did you know that Moss Book 2 came out?
No, I didn't know until I saw Patrick Klepek tweet about it.
Yeah.
Being like, it's a shame Moss 2 is a PSVR 1 game.
Yeah. So
and I had no idea.
I didn't know it came out. That's gonna make me get my VR back out. Like but the lack of titles and lack of stuff on there is concerning to me, and to the point it's concerning enough to me that do I care about PSVR 2? Yeah. Am I gonna want to buy this at launch? Like, yeah, there's a part of me that's gonna want to buy it at launch. Obviously, the price is gonna be outrageous, but they almost have to, I hate to say it, they almost have to have 20 or 25 games ready within the first 30 days of this coming out. Like, they can't, and they need to be like, all of those 20 or 25 games need to be better than anything that's come to VR1 already. Anything.
Guess what? It's gonna be a lot of ports.
Right. And so, like, that's concerning for a new piece of hardware. Like, especially when we're hearing about rumors and we're hearing about all these studio acquisitions, but none of them are saying VR. They're none of them are saying VR.
I mean, the only thing we know is like they purchased a VR studio PlayStation with Firesprite, and then
but we thought that they were doing a games as a service, and now it doesn't look like they are. I might need you to repeat that because I'm losing you on Discord.
So they're doing something. Firesprite is that what exactly is unknown. But that just
I thought it might be your internet, Michael, just because like I'm not dropping any frames or anything right now.
Yeah, maybe it's mine. How do I sound now?
You still sound rough right now, but it's starting to catch up a little bit. So
yeah, just give it a second.
Yeah.
How does this sound? Does this sound better? Better.
It's getting there. I can actually like see you move now. So. Like,
okay, yeah. There's construction outside, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's getting.
Yeah. So give it a little bit more. So. Because I'm assuming you can see me, right? Like you saw me.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah, like I'm not having any issues with you.
It's starting
to.
But
it's weird. You would think I would have issues with yours. Could this be Discord being weird?
Yeah, it could be. Because like I said, I'm not dropping anything on OBS. Like I have not dropped a single frame. So if I was having internet problems, it would have definitely hit that first.
Yeah, but then I would assume my Discord for you would be messed up. But I don't know.
Right.
It'll make the YouTube video interesting. Because I'm not going to edit any of this out.
All right. Talk for me again real quick.
Talking.
Yeah. All right.
There?
Yeah, you're there. Yeah, we're back. So.
Okay. Sorry, Angela. Here, I'll clap for you so you know when to come back. There we go. All right. So, PSVR 2 event. It just makes sense for that to happen at this point because they are still planning a 2023 launch. I think. Did they give a date for PSVR 2?
I don't think they actually have. So.
Yeah. I do think part of the excitement from like a Greg Miller was it was probably an in-person event.
Uh-huh.
So like that's why their hype level would be like significantly higher for something. But the last bit of news, which isn't too surprising, is the third rumor was PlayStation is in the middle of negotiating another acquisition from a big studio. So they kept emphasizing that it's a big studio acquisition. But they couldn't say which studio that is because it's still early in the negotiations that if it leaked, the deal could be killed. Because when we're talking about business deals like that, it could lead to like insider trading talk, and then the deal would just be killed immediately.
Do you have a guess?
So I was trying to figure out who this could be,
I have a guess.
I don't know who's left.
And it's crazy. Like it's gonna sound like it's out of left field, but I'm gonna state my case at the same time. I think it's Ubisoft. And the reason I think it's Ubisoft is they've been very, 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 very quiet. Like, very quiet.
I just
like,
do they have that money?
I think that's a big.
Are they
get.
Bethesda?
That
They're worth more than Bethesda, I think. Bethesda was 7.5 billion.
Yeah, I think Sony does based on how much they paid for Bungie. But I just like the only reason is they're just really, really quiet. Like, just really, like, I can't even, like, I have relationships like with Ubisoft PR people, and I'm not hearing anything from any of them at all. Like, there's Division stuff rumbling, like really small Division stuff rumbling, like a PTS server for like a new game mode, like really small stuff. They just announced today that they're not doing anything else for Ghost Recon. Like, so they're either, it's been really, really quiet, and I don't know if that stuff is in preparation because these are things that they need to like end, or deals that they have to finish. But like, it's like, if it's going to be that big of a like there's not really a lot other ones left unless it's like, I guess what 505. But
yeah, I mean,
but 505 doesn't. I'm sorry, like they make great games, but I don't think they carry the cloud as a big studio in my mind, right?
Yeah, the name that popped in my head is maybe NetherRealm, because like NetherRealm,
they're just, but to me they're kind of a one-trick pony.
No, they are, but like in terms of like name prestige and attainability,
it's either them or Warner.
Yeah, but even then, I think I almost wonder, like, so Warner would probably be less than Bethesda because you won't be getting the IPs.
Okay, yeah.
You would have to negotiate separately for the IPs. Like, there's no way Warner Brothers is gonna be like, take Batman.
Yeah.
You know, but they might be able to be like, take Mortal Kombat because we have nothing to. We have no future use for this. NetherRealm would, to me, it seems like the most like acquirable studio, because like I like Ubisoft. It makes sense because it's weird that Ubisoft is super fucking quiet, other than the fact that they like have lost a lot of talent.
I mean, they haven't even delayed anything.
Yeah. The only thing is, like, I would imagine, I think Ubisoft's worth more than Bethesda.
I agree, but I'd have to really look into exactly like the part that's super interesting about that, though, is that I feel like if it would almost be similarly worded to the Bungie deal. They would not be a PlayStation studio.
Yeah, no, it would have to be like, hey, they'll still be third party,
right? Because they still like their contracts with Nintendo, like their deals that they have with Mario, like that's so messy. Like,
yeah, and then also it's a bargaining chip against Microsoft to keep like the Activision games third party as well. Or
you want Assassin's Creed? We want Call of Duty. Like,
but I almost feel like that would be, of the major publishers,
would break the internet. Like, it would break the internet. Yeah.
And I don't think they're going to get a Japanese publisher. Like, I know people want them to get Square, but we've talked about it. I think Square makes too many random things for them to fit.
I mean, like, in the order of, like, Capcom is untouchable.
But would totally fit the Sony PlayStation brand.
Square is probably too expensive.
Yeah.
And Sega's too dangerous.
Yes, the payoff for Sega's too low.
Yeah.
The Square one's more expensive than Ubisoft would be, just because of how I think they evaluate themselves. Ubisoft's kind of down right now.
Yeah, we talked about a couple weeks ago with like Capcom, like with the Resident Evil stuff that they've been doing, and like the success of other things. Like, they're way too much money. Like, way too much money.
They're way too much money, but they also, again, they fit the PlayStation Studios model. I think like they totally would fit in. A Resident Evil, Monster Hunter would totally fit into what PlayStation wants. But that also means they're more valuable. Mm-hmm. You know, like Capcom will up the price of like, oh, we fit too well with you, so you have to pay for it.
Right.
And in Square Enix, I think would value themselves too high. You're right. Ubisoft might be like, of the publishers, might be the obtainable publisher.
Mm-hmm. Just because they don't know what direction they want to go.
Yeah, and it might benefit them to just be like, to have someone else take over, and hopefully they will treat their employees better than what Ubisoft has been doing. And then I still am going back to NetherRealm just because I feel like NetherRealm were apparently working on Injustice, but the merger, all that stuff, basically made them go like, we're not going to work on this anymore. We're going to go back to Mortal Kombat because we don't want to put effort into this thing that we don't even know who owns the rights to. So it almost sounds like it would be a perfect time for NetherRealm to just like ask for their freedom from Warner Brothers, because it sounds like a headache if you're trying to make a game under that umbrella right now.
So what's NetherRealm cost then?
Less than a Bungie, but not by much. I think how much Bungie went for $3 billion. I think 1.5 for NetherRealm would make sense.
Not by much. Like 50% less is a lot, Michael. Like, huh? 50% less than Bungie is a lot.
I know, but we're talking about billions. But like, I still think they're $1 billion acquisition.
Okay.
I
think
don't think
the
they're
esport
like
aspect of it as well fits into the Sony's thing of what Sony's going after.
Yeah. You know, in terms of like getting a fighting game, unless they get Capcom, because Capcom has Street Fighter, but like if they want to have something for their esports, NetherRealm just kind of makes sense. Yeah, I would go NetherRealm, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Ubisoft. Watch, it's going to be something random, and we're going to scratch our head on like, really, that's what you acquired?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to be a Rockstar.
The thing that sucks for Sony either way right now is like, either it has like the next acquisition they announce with with Grubb and Miller talking about this, the next acquisition they officially announce has to be like a bigger name. Like if we hear like some other small studio that they acquire or some independent studio that they pick up, again, I'm not digging on them, but all of a sudden they announce, oh, we bought Drinkbox. People are like, well, that's not a major studio.
Like, they can't go out and buy Q Games,
right,
or the Pixel Junk Studios. They can't buy Young Horses.
Right.
Like, I mean, that wouldn't make any sense for them to buy Young Horses, but they can't just buy like an indie studio.
And it can't even be like Quantic Dream either. Like I don't think Quantic Dream's on that level.
They just were acquired. They just acquired by NetEase or something, according to like rumors, or NetEase is kicking the tires,
investing again.
Yeah.
So,
unless they do like a Microsoft thing, or remember when Microsoft said they bought Ninja Theory and all those other studios where they just announced 6 acquisitions.
Yeah, they say that
we
bought like 4 studios at one time, but I also feel like Sony wants to give each studio their day in the sun.
Yeah, except for that one Twitter account that messed up, and I forget which studio did they accidentally say? Housemarque. They acquired Housemarque, and then they said, "Oh, and Bluepoint." And it was like,
but they haven't.
No.
Have they officially acquired Bluepoint yet?
Yes, they have.
Okay, I can't remember anymore.
Yeah, that was the one where when Housemarque was purchased, the Twitter account in like Japan accidentally said Bluepoint was acquired.
Yeah.
And then they announced it like a month later. But yeah, it would be interesting to see. We need to keep track of like companies we think that they can buy.
I need like a whiteboard over here that I have like Sony, like PlayStation. Well, somebody on social media was correcting me the other day when there was some reference to Destiny and they referred to them as a PlayStation studio, and they're like, well, they're not a PlayStation studio. I'm like, okay, like by name, no, but they are owned by PlayStation. No, Sony owns them. I'm like, okay, yeah.
I love those corrections.
Yeah, and so that was just like, what do you consider Mojang? Well, they're just, because I go, Mojang still releases on Switch and PlayStation, and they're like, well, they're owned by Microsoft. I go, yeah, they're a Microsoft game studio. Well, no, they're not. And I go, yes, they are. I was just like, yes, they're not officially a PlayStation studio. Like when you turn a Bungie game on, you're not going to see the PlayStation Studio logo show up, but they're owned by PlayStation.
Yeah. Yeah, the money is still going to the same place.
Right.
It's just going through one extra filter to get there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to get a little board and
a flow chart. Need a flow chart.
Yeah. Like who's on the board left?
We got those 2 chat bubbles in our logo. Like, can we just start? Like, maybe I'll have Angela start adding one chat bubble is Sony, one is Microsoft with all the studio names in the bubble.
Yeah, I'll just keep it going. But that's all I had for the news.
I have something really quick because I know a lot of people have heard me talk about it till I was blue in the face in January, and I want you guys to know if you missed it. Nobody Saves the World will be on PlayStation in April 14th. So apparently it was only a 90-day exclusivity with Xbox. It is on Game Pass if you haven't played it yet, but I really, really enjoyed that game, and I had a lot of fun with it. And a lot of people, when I streamed it, a lot of people watched and asked questions. So, and I know a good portion of our listeners are PlayStation players. So definitely check it out. I don't know how much it costs. I didn't see how much it costs. I didn't check, but it should be around 20 or $25, and it's worth every penny. So.
It's going to be on the Switch, which is probably where I'll pick it up.
Yeah. I was hoping for a physical release, and I haven't seen or heard anything about a physical release.
There'll probably be like limited run games or something small.
Yeah, I'm going to have to
that,
get something like that. So maybe get me a little collectible nobody.
Yeah.
or the wand. That'd be cool. So back here on my shelves. All right. And did not hear of anything being delayed.
No, nothing yet.
So, and then what we're playing and watching, I've been watching a decent amount of TV. Angela and I have been watching a lot of Kim's Convenience again, as we're kind of just in this like veg mode. We started into like, I guess, the last season. So the last season of Kim's Convenience, when it sounds like the writing gets really bad, because one of the main characters is only in the show like in video chat format.
Yeah, was it during the pandemic they shot it?
No, he's just. I guess he was shooting another. He might have been shooting another video or a movie. The Jong character.
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi.
Yeah, he was probably shooting Shang-Chi.
Yeah, so and they just said that a lot of people, even the actors, were complaining about the writing, and this is what happens when I watch TV shows with my wife, and she reads ahead, like an article.
Yeah, well, it's because they and also they just canceled the show after the season because the writers were just like, we're done, and it was ugly how it ended.
Yeah, I did watch just through Disney Plus randomly the other day. I did watch Jungle Cruise because I was bored, and I've heard good things about it. It's not a bad movie. It's another Dwayne The Rock Johnson movie that's funny and has some decent stuff to it. So
I like that movie, but it was also one of those movies that it didn't need to be 2 hours.
Right.
Like there were multiple points in that movie. I'm like, this is still going.
Yeah. But I mean, like, some of the action scenes were kind of cool, and some of the special effects were kind of cool. So it was definitely good to watch. I do have Owen, my youngest, is on spring break this week, so I think that I'm going to take him to the movie theater to see the Sonic 2 movie that comes out this week. Watched a little bit of just bits and pieces of the NCAA tournament, and just I didn't really play much. I've been kind of mentally, I think I put this on social media, I put it in the Facebook group, I'm just mentally tired, and I don't know if it's like getting used to the drive to work, the new store, the new people, the new environment, all of that stuff, and as well as like the responsibilities that are coming with me and now that could be weighing on me a little bit. My wife wants me to tell everybody that she won the bracket challenge, so which means that she sucked the least out of everybody's brackets that were really bad. And I still do have goals. Like I need to whether it's Death's Door, or I did finally download Tunic and MLB The Show today. Those are downloaded. So I'm definitely going to try to jump back on the bandwagon of just kind of taking a break from Destiny again, or just periodically messing with it. There's not a lot going on right now in the game. I really enjoyed it. The like Savathun's throne world and the story aspect of Witch Queen was fantastic, and but this season just seems kind of bland, which is kind of been par for the course when they release an expansion at the same time that the season's live. The season, I feel like, suffers. And I do want to stream some more. So, like I said, I've been messing with some setup stuff down here and trying to find a new routine and a new rhythm. So, I don't know if Tunic will come to PlayStation. Going back to what I just talked about, it'll be super interesting to see how quickly it does or doesn't with the turnaround of Nobody Saves the World, being significantly shorter than I thought. I thought minimum 6 months, minimum.
I think Tunic will eventually come to PlayStation. I remember playing that game like 6 years ago on a PlayStation controller at an event. But that was back when PlayStation kind of cared about indie games. Mm-hmm. And now they're just like, we'll get them when we get them. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a 90-day or 6-month window for like a Tunic. Or did you have anything else?
No.
Yeah. For me, there's been a lot of family stuff going on, so I haven't had too much time to play things. I'm still playing Elden Ring, but I've definitely kind of like slowed down on when I'm playing. It's going to sound crazy. Elden Ring has kind of become my relaxing game, which is just super bizarre because it's not relaxing, but it's also just one of those things where I'm just like, all right, let me just go explore. And I'm pretty leveled up and confident in like how I play, to where I'm just like, okay, let me go find like a dungeon, let me go find a cave that will lead to something, and then I'll just take care of one thing in a session. So it's kind of becoming a relaxing game that I play every once in a while, which is just bizarre that I've hit that point in my life where I'm playing a Souls game for relaxation. So just a little bit of Elden Ring. I completely fell off WWE 2K. I put a little bit more time into the career mode, but I just couldn't. WrestleMania was in, or WrestleMania was this weekend. I did sit through both days of WrestleMania. There were some cool moments, like Stone Cold Steve Austin actually did have a match, and it was kind of entertaining. I mean, it was entertaining just to see him still do stuff, and he actually tried, which was interesting to see. I was worried. He's like almost 60 years old. I was expecting the worst, but he ended up putting in a good effort. But for the most part, WrestleMania, both days, most matches were fine. Like they weren't great. I don't think there was anything too memorable outside of the Austin stuff and like the Cody return, but for the most part, I was just like, this is okay. I didn't feel like I wasted my time.
Yeah, most of the feedback I heard on social media was like the matches themselves were really good, but the build up and the things that usually surround the matches, which make them more impactful, like story wise, weren't there.
Yeah, the story stuff definitely wasn't there. They had some cool entrances, if that helps, but like story wise.
But the wrestling seemed to be really good.
Yeah, wrestling has been pretty good. Like there were a couple matches that were like whatever, but they kept those short.
Mm-hmm.
This is at least a WrestleMania I didn't walk away from angry. Usually the last couple years you watch WrestleMania and you're just like, I completely wasted my time. But this one was just like, okay, cool. Like at least I got to see Stone Cold do something.
They gave Undertaker a really good induction into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but they had him come out twice to tell us that he was in the Hall of Fame. So each time it was just like, but the second time he did it, it was just like, guys, this is 2 4.5-hour shows. You don't need to have him walk out twice. But overall, it was fine. It was a decent show. They did disappoint with the Raw after Mania, unfortunately. That was very lackluster. It's usually like a big show because it's basically them starting a new season of wrestling the night after WrestleMania, and this year they just seem to like not care. That is pretty much it. I'm still obsessed with Winning Time. That's like the show that I keep waiting for every Sunday. So I'm still obsessed with that, but it's really just been like family stuff and some Elden Ring here and there for the most part. I do have Tunic downloaded and MLB The Show downloaded. And then a game that I didn't realize was out on Xbox that I had played last year in early access on PC, Century, which is like the dragon fighting game.
Mm-hmm.
That is apparently out on Xbox, so I'm going to have to download that today just to mess around with it. Because it is coming to PlayStation, I think, sometime this month. But I just to know Xbox had like an early, access to it as well. But overall, that's it for me.
Yeah, I saw something too today for Game Pass getting like True Colors, Life is Strange, True Colors.
Life is Strange, True Colors.
So there's some other, and there was something else in there too that I thought was interesting, but I don't remember what it was. I just tried to look it up, but didn't see it. So our questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. We got one from Stefan today. If you were both involved in game development, what part of the process would most interest you? For example, would it be building the physics engine, writing the story, artist, or sound design? So for me, it would be like my biggest thing is player incentive, like reason to play. As you all know, like I really love looters. And I enjoy a lot of games as a service, and typically for a long time it's always like, what is the player getting out of it? So like player investment, player involvement, and rewards, in structure of rewards, how they're delivered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me it would probably just come down to writing. I enjoy writing. I really like dialogue, and like the idea of being in a writer's room and like riffing off other people's ideas is something I really enjoy doing. that would be the only aspect. Also, it doesn't involve any technical skill, because I would not be able to design anything. I originally thought like maybe community management, but then like, have you talked to video gamers on Twitter, man? That shit's rough.
Go look at Chandler Woods mentions, like watch if how they changed since he started working for Avalanche. So
yeah, so I first thought like community management, and I'm just like, oh no, like I couldn't handle replying to gamers.
I want to be the guy
Twitter.
in the room, like kind of talking to the, like I said, like player investment, like talking to the game developers or the designers or the world builders, and like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and I go, okay, why do I play it? What? Well, why do I go over there? Like,
you basically want to be mock reviews, but for like every
no, but
different
it's like
aspect.
you know, like you talk about like, okay, what do I get? Like, you know, like, people make fun of me because I do the same things over and over again in Destiny, which I do. But it's like sometimes it's like, oh, I have a chance at getting this, or like I had a little conversation in Discord today with a couple of my clanmates or Destiny players. There's harder content coming into Destiny, like challenge mode for the raid, and it's like I don't need another high level drop. I'm already high enough level. Like, why do you want to make me do something differently than I do it now? Oh, well, you might get really high stat armor. I'm like, yeah, but you already gave me a way to get high stat armor that I can do by just blindly playing the game. I can go to a machine and turn an engram in and get the same thing that you're asking me to like go run the raid and run it backwards. Like, no. Like,
yeah.
Like you have to make the my investment worth the return. Like, and like even you've kind of lost it a little bit with like you can wrap it into Halo, you can wrap it into Back for Blood. What's the was it Back for Blood?
Yes,
the game that just came out.
Game.
Like, why am I going to sign into this game daily, weekly, monthly, seasonally? Like, why? You know?
Yeah. And then my thing with writing is I don't know how many times I've been watching a cutscene in the game and I'm like, why are they talking like this? Why is the dialogue so bad? So I would just want to be in that room to be like,
and Michael would be like, can you say it like less as a dick? Or can you say that more as a dick?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. It's like, why does that sentence feel like it hurts for the character to say? So yeah, no, I think I would just like, I don't know, the idea of working in a writer's room intrigues me more than, you know, trying to figure out the mechanics and stuff like that. Because I know also a lot of those decisions that happen in a writing room get destroyed by the mechanics at a certain point. So we can't fit that facial reaction. Well, why not? It's important.
The tree won't fit if you put that facial reaction. We can't put the tree in the background.
If the character has the shoulder pads, then we lose animation, and it's just like, cool.
He can't run his fingers through his hair if you want him to talk at the same time. Like
yeah. He has to just grunt every time he wants to do something. Okay.
That's the real reason Link doesn't talk. They can't afford it.
Yeah, and it's just, dude, just so much easier. And also, man, how disappointing would Link's voice be at this point?
Hey guys.
Yeah, no, or it's like super deep and it makes no sense. And you're just like, okay, you ruined my childhood.
The day he talks is going to be the day the internet breaks.
I mean, he did in that cartoon, but we don't count that. But
excuse me.
Yeah. No, what if Link just has Mario's voice? Like that's all they have. It's just,
hey guys, it's okay. We got Chris Pratt to voice Link. Like,
yeah. It's The Rock.
What's the guy's crap? I'm so bad with names, but do you ever remember the movie Problem Child?
Yeah. Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah, him. Like, what if he's Link?
Yeah, I would be into that. Like he tracks down Zelda, and that's the voice.
How you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Iago from Aladdin. That's Link. Yeah.
I don't know why Problem Child was the first one that came up. He's been in hundreds of things.
Yeah, Aladdin might have been like the go-to one.
Yeah.
But luckily you have me as a co-host who's like, oh, I know you're not talking about John Ritter.
Like, if I'm ever going to play Trivial Pursuit, Michael has to be my partner.
Yeah.
What was it? Have you seen that? Like, I don't know why this just popped in my head too, but have you seen that either a TikTok or I don't even know if it is, but about a Trivial Pursuit question that's like 20 years old that says which of these people has not played Batman or has not played Batman, and Ben Affleck's on the list. That, yeah. So, like, when the card was made 15 years ago, it was correct, and now it's not.
Yeah, like Ben Affleck would never be Batman. No, it's possible.
All right, that is our show for this week. So you can, like I said at the beginning of the show, you can check out all of our socials. The main account for Twitter is @DigitalDaysPod. And I saw your tweet there, Will Richardson, with you saying that new PS Plus is better than Game Pass with the popcorn gif. I'm gonna leave that alone.
And I saw that too, and I'm like, someone's a fanboy because they're saying something with no information is better than a thing that we know information on. But that's fine.
I love Will. He's fun to mess with.
I know,
But
yeah.
I'm just gonna leave that one
The
alone.
only reason I would call him a fanboy is I know he can take it.
So yeah, the main account is @DigitalDaysPod. Michael's account is @TheFirstMJC. Mine is @GoodDaveHunt. Facebook group, Discord server is all linked in the show notes. Patreon, patreon.com/DigitalDaysGaming. So $1 tip jar, $3 Discord access, $5 gets you the 24-hour early access to the show. So you get it on Wednesday instead of Thursday, and then $7 gets you the monthly bonus episode, which we did not do for March.
And that was my bad this time.
So we will have to catch that up soon, like really soon. Like I'm off this weekend soon.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just do both. That way we don't have to worry about it for a while. So
That sounds like a plan.
other than that, I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya.